your source for everything paranormal, Para-X.
And welcome back, everybody, right here to the Paranormal View on the Para-X Radio Network. I want to thank everyone for being here tonight. Hope you're enjoying the show. We have with us Barbara Duncan.
I am still here.
And we got Jeffrey Gould.
Hello.
Oh, he is here. And we got our great guest, Darcie McGrath.
Hello.
All right. So, was you talking about something before we went to break, Barbara?
I was just commenting on the concept of what Darcie is talking about, awareness of your surroundings and where you are consciously in the universe. And it sounded a lot like Buddhist philosophy, which is, are we really here? And where our consciousness expands to, which falls back into parapsychology. So.
Yeah, I have found a lot of parallels in Buddhist principle in regards to consciousness. And how even the Tibetan Book of the Dead, one of the rituals that they do at the time of death is to coax the person who's passing away to ascend to the highest level possible. You know, don't be distracted by anyone trying to talk to you. Don't be distracted by loved ones. Go to the highest and the best. And I always thought that was just fascinating that they built that into the death process. And I think that would very greatly shape your afterlife as to which level you decided to settle for when you die. So, yeah.
Very much so. And it's interesting, the correlations, and I don't even want to fathom, I can't remember how old the Tibetan Book of the Dead is either, but the fact that it is ingrained into that philosophy is fascinating to me, just as the Hindu philosophy and religion also coincides with a lot of quantum physics and astrophysics that we're learning about today.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I think there's a little bit of truth in all of the religious disciplines. It might be using different verbiage, but one of the exciting opportunities, I got to have a conversation with Andy Kopic, who developed the full spectrum camera. He's a graduate of quantum thermodynamics from MIT. And his significant other was there at a conference with him, and I'm drawing a blank, and maybe you guys have probably a better idea who this is than I do. He was a member of the Exorcist organization associated with the Vatican. And he would oftentimes go to paranormal conventions warning people about the evils of what they were doing. And I'm drawing a blank. I think he had his own television show for a while, too. The Exorcist Files, I think it was.
I can't remember.
The
Exorcist Files?
Yeah.
A lot of the major Bible thumpers are all don't talk to demons, you're just going to, bring in everything terrible and open a door you can't close kind of thing, so...
Oh, yeah. Well, he was at one of the conventions that Andy was at, and the two of them ended off in a corner of the room together.
Ooh.
And Michelle, who was his significant other, walked in on them having a very loud and animated discussion, and she was afraid they were fighting. No, they were excited because what the Vatican exorcist representative, the language he was using, Andy could find correlating scientific language that would verify what he was saying as far as the exorcism process and what was experienced in the exorcism process. And Andy would say, in quantum physics we call it this, that, da, 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 da. And so, here Michelle walked in on this conversation, thinking she was going to have to break up a fight, and it turned out that they were just very excited. But they were just using different language.
Sure.
Do you did you watch a TV series that ran this past season called Evil?
Yes,
Just
I did.
I love that show.
I did too, and I actually know people from both sides of the field in that. I have a friend of mine who's very, very into the Vatican and the workings of it and the evolution that they're going through right now. And a lot of that is pretty accurately represented in that series.
Yeah, but the last two episodes too, when the Goat Man showed up, was like, wait, what?
Oh yeah.
Where you didn't realize the I can't remember his name, the actor who's been the antagonist. We just thought he was on his own, but he's like, he's got his own little Satan as his therapist.
Right. Oh, I thought that was brilliant. Yeah. So there were a lot of telltale things in there that I thought were fascinating, especially the part about the lucid dreaming.
Oh yeah.
And I had just been studying Robert Stevenson and some of the other experts on lucid dreaming, and when I started watching that show, I'm like, you know what? If she just did this in her lucid dream, she'd be able to figure it out. The very next episode, boom, they jumped right into lucid dreaming, and I'm like, oh, that's great.
The writing on the ceiling. You mean the writing
yes.
on the ceiling? Yeah.
Yes, and George, having the string on her finger, or the string on her wrist. Mm-hmm. And yeah. So that's straight out of the playbook for lucid dreaming. So I was just like, and I've had that happen to me.
Yeah, and she was able to expel George pretty easily that way.
Yeah. No, I thought it was brilliant. I actually put that on my parapsychology or paranormal site because I was like, this is brilliant. You got to see this. I put that out there. But yeah, I've had that happen in lucid dreaming too, where I'll be sitting there and I'll be trying to type something on the computer, and I'll type it over and over and over again. It's just gobbledygook and gobbledygook. I'm like, I know I'm typing it right. Why the heck? I'm like, oh, I'm dreaming. From the moment I realized I was dreaming, of course I woke up. Like, dang it.
That's what always annoys me. The few times I realize I think I'm dreaming. Ding! Either wake up or the dream says, hey, look over here. And you look over there and you forget that you're dreaming again.
Oh, yeah,
Okay.
yeah. And
like the dream
that goes back to
you.
I've got a question again from the chat room. It's from Tabby Cat. And she wants to know, what has been your most profound paranormal experience you've had?
Oh, wow. Well, I've had to say the last several of them I've had at Gettysburg were just amazing in that they were so physical and so undeniably there. I mean, I've had episodes where I've captured stuff on camera, I've captured stuff on the audio before, but to actually have an audio phenomenon happening right there in front of me, and, you can't see anything, but you can talk to it, and it responds to your voice. And that was just really it was one of my first times I've actually had a very interactive episode where I've seen cause and effect. So, I mean, I know when that whoever it was came to my door, and he was going to come in, and I'm like, I had to hold my ground. I was the only one in the house. Everybody else was outside. They were asleep. So I just basically had to stand my ground and say, not in a lady's bedroom, you don't.
Huh.
And the footsteps stopped, and you could hear this rocking of the floorboards, like somebody was rocking on their heels, and like they weren't quite sure what to do. And then they started pacing up and down the hallway. You could hear the footsteps, kind of like agitated that they couldn't come in.
Huh.
And so, fortunately enough, he understood boundaries, and he listened to me.
And he was waiting for instructions. Like, no one's ever stood up to me before. What the?
Well, either that or he really wanted to talk to me, and he was annoyed that I put him off.
But this brings up a good question, Darcie. Do you, when you go on investigations or into a client's house after something like this, would you counsel them to say, you need to set a boundary here? No, you can't come into my bedroom. Yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, what you allow will continue. That's an old saying from way back when, but it's still very prominent today. And that's why you have problems with bullies today, is that you fall into this victimized mentality and you let the bully walk all over you. It's the same here. You have this entity in your house. This is your house. You have every right to set your boundaries for yourself. Now, you don't have the right to threaten them or scream and yell obscenities at them, or challenge them. If you do that, then you're asking for a fight. But you have every right to set boundaries for yourself. And that's something I have actually learned doing EVP sessions too. I've heard of negative entities coming into a location and it shows up on the recorder, and you hear the other entities that are in that location fending them off with that very verbiage. Do not touch me. Leave me alone. And they are setting their boundaries. And it's like, that's something we got to learn to do. And for some people, that's very hard because they never learned to do it. Even in adulthood, they haven't learned to do it.
Now,
well, that's one of the things I found about like the Travel Channel is there's a lot of victimization that seems to happen on a lot of these shows.
Yes.
And there needs to be a trend away from that somehow.
Yeah.
But they don't show a lot of resolution.
No, they don't have a lot of resolution, and that's the sad part about it, because I know a lot of paranormal investigators, when they get their start, they're learning from those shows. And those shows don't carry the whole case through. Now, they might actually have resolution on those cases. They just don't show it because it doesn't make good television. The producers just think it's boring. I'm never going to show that stuff. Ghost Hunters talked about that a couple times, where they've done things outside the parameters of the episode that are not aired.
right.
But they've offered a resolution for the client in such a way, but it's because of the parameters set for the show and the scope set for the show. They don't want to get too much into religion. They don't want to get too much into spirituality. And so those things are done off camera.
Now,
and even with me,
yeah, we talked about that before. It's that, and somehow when you investigate a noise in the middle of the night, you don't think to turn the light on.
No.
And I'm just going, come on, guys, let's make it a little bit more realistic, because people are watching this from, like I said, binge watching during quarantine, and they start to see things happening around the house, and they look at TV and they see somebody scared half to death, no resolution. They're walking down and see things in the middle of the night because they're not turning the light on. And they just run out of the house in the middle of the night and never go back.
Yeah, their imagination that gets the better of them. And I mean, how many times have we woken up in the middle of the night and we've seen a silhouette in the window and we're completely freaking out? And then we turn on the light and find out, the dress we hung up in the window there looked like a person was standing there. But, of course, you turn the light, it illuminates that, But people, because they see these television shows, think they need to wander around in the dark. And I just laugh at that, because I've investigated day or night. If a place is haunted, it's haunted 24/7. It's not going to wait till the lights go out and then come out. No, there is a psychological process that happens when you sleep. I should say a neurological process that happens when you sleep.
Sure. That
when you go through several cycles during the night, and usually around 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning, depending on what time you went to bed. It typically happens between 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning. You're going to wake up. Whether or not you recall waking up, you will wake up. And that's usually when people are reporting to me that they have experiences, is because they've woken up and then they've forgotten they've woken up. Or they've woken up but not quite fully. And that's when you can actually have either waking dreams, or you might have a psychic episode, because your brain chemistry is in that mapped state that most mediums are in to receive that information at that point in time in your sleep cycle. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, people talk about the witching hour and, the dead time and all that kind of stuff. And, yeah, it sounds dramatic and everything. And if you watch too much TV, you might actually buy into that. But as far as your neurological programming is concerned, when it comes to sleeping, you're going to be more receptive to things happening at that time of the day, because you're more or less half asleep, half awake.
Yeah, I've never bought into that stuff, really.
Yeah, and there's no reason to be investigating from 10 o'clock at night till 6 o'clock in the morning. There's no reason. No. Not unless you have an addiction problem with Red Bull.
Oh, well.
That's very true.
Now, I know
but also it's I'm sorry if you see a black mass in your hallway in the middle of the night and you turn the light on. If the black mass is still there, then you have a haunting. If not, it can be a number of shadow things.
Oh,
but
yeah.
I don't buy the turn off the lights.
Yeah, when you're coming awake, you're just coming to the point of between sleep and awake. That's when I have a lot of my psychic experiences. I pay attention to those, and I make a note of it, and running it through my rational filter after that, I can decide whether or not it was something prominent or not. But sometimes you can have those waking dream states where your body is still paralyzed. The chemistry or chemical running through the body hasn't worn off yet, and you're still stuck.
Right.
And you can have a waking dream and not even really realize you're having a waking dream.
Now, I have been with mediums before, and it's really
I
don't believe that.
well. It's really interesting because supposedly there was a little girl in this house, and me, her, and a guy from Port, Mark, was sitting in the front looking down the hall, and I'm just asking questions, and everything, and all of a sudden the medium says, "She's standing right in front of you." I said, "Oh, okay. Let me get my camera here and see if I can take a picture." And a few seconds, Mark says, "Honey, can Henry take your picture?" And we get the EVP. I'm smiling. Now, you have a medium telling you that she's there, and then you ask a question and you get an answer. She said something else too later on when I was still trying to talk with her. They said, well, she's not here because there was a dark entity in the house and she didn't care for it. So she was back in the back of the house hiding. Well, I had recorders all over. And when they said that, the recorder picks up her saying, "Hiding." So, I mean, when you're getting interaction like that, is that paranormal then?
I like to see it in patterns of 3 than just 2. So, I mean, if you got that EVP and you had the medium saying something, and then you took the photograph and there was something there.
Well, I didn't get nothing on a photograph.
Torso apparition standing there, but because the hiding part of it could be a projection from the medium. The medium could be thinking it, and she can affect the equipment as well. So you got to be careful about that sort of thing. And Loyd turned me onto that, and I never really thought much about it either. But yeah, PK wise, a medium could project that, and it could end up on the equipment that way. But if you have a third thing, like you have the medium, you have the audio, you have the camera, you have the medium, you have the audio, you have a video. Yeah, that kind of narrows down the
I only took
culprits of.
I only took 1 or 2 pictures, but there was nothing on the pictures. So.
Oh, bummer. Well, that trifecta is hard to get.
Yeah.
It really is hard to get. But yeah, you just have to keep that in the back of your mind that the living can impact equipment.
Yeah.
So
and I'm also wondering, because you're talking about the IR camera and how much more beneficial it would be in paranormal investigation than just a standard camera is. And I believe that.
Yeah, it can be. You're seeing a different spectrum that the eye can't see.
Right.
So you got a piece of equipment that's able to see a spectrum of light that we can't see, and the full spectrum camera too. And I've asked Andy about that. I said, it's nice that you have this full spectrum camera that sees all the way from ultraviolet through visible light to IR, but have you been able to develop a camera that just sees UV? And he says, oh, I've never tried that. I said, that would rule a lot of other things out too, as to what frequency is this entity appearing in. Because he's had some interesting stuff come out of his camera where things will look like a shadow of a person. You can make out the clothing and everything. It's obviously somebody wearing clothes from a different time sitting there. But then he'll have other pictures that he'll take with the camera that are bright flashes of this violet color. And that's obviously in a different part of the spectrum than this other. So I said, could this darker energy be more earthbound, type, person, and then the UV flash probably from a higher register being from higher realms or more evolved state? He goes, well, I don't know. I've just never really tried that. So it's kind of frustrating to see some of this new technology being carried so willy-nilly into the field that nobody's really bothering to scientifically, investigate with it. They just kind of see what they're doing on TV with it, and that's about as far as they take it. But those are just the questions as a researcher I ask. Nobody else is probably caring about that.
Well, now, you sent us an article about paranormal has increased during the COVID lockdown. Did you read all of it? What was some of the most interesting stories that was in there?
Well, as we were talked about before break, one of them was actually talking about how that she realized the activity was there and she was making friends with it. And it actually gave her peace. It didn't scare her. It gave her peace. And then sometimes there would be people that were staying at a vacation home. They got away. And they were staying at an Airbnb somewhere. And they had an experience, but because they'd never had an experience before, they couldn't tell whether what they saw was a residual or something interactive. Because it was there and then it was gone. But that's just it when you're dealing with these people that have never had an experience before. Not, really thinking to ask those questions. But those are. I like the one where the lady was actually making friends with the entity in the apartment. That was pretty cool. She felt less lonely that way. And I'm like, well, good for you. I'm sure the entity felt less lonely too.
Well, it's an interesting coping mechanism, and probably a lot healthier one to be able to get along with something that's there, instead of, again, going back to Sports Said channel, that everything is that goes bump in the night is demonic. And it could just be, hey, it's just a roommate you didn't know you had.
Yeah, right. And it's probably been there all that time. It's just waiting for you to pay attention to it.
They're really behind in their rent.
That's right.
Yeah, if you could only get them to pay rent, it would be great.
Yeah.
Yeah, that rent in New York is not anything to sneeze at. Jeez.
Well, the house that we lived in.
Of course, there was the one about the two roommates that had the apartment, and they heard the footsteps upstairs, and they suddenly realized, oh, that's right, that apartment's vacant.
Huh.
Where are those footsteps coming from? They actually had enough time to actually pay attention to the sounds going on around them and going, oh,
well,
okay.
Do you think that's the way it is now or has been with people actually locked down and not going places? They're paying more
attention? They're
attention?
definitely aware of the sounds around them than they were before. I believe that when you're going through the rigors of the regular life, having to grab that cup of coffee and grab that bagel and run out the door, and you hear something and you just kind of dismiss it and you're on your way, and then you come back at 4:30, then you're grabbing your coat and you're out to the bar, or you're always go. You don't pay attention to that stuff, but it's kind of like all the cat memes we see on Facebook. I really like the one where the person's got the chalk in her hand and she's marked off like 29 days in quarantine, and the cat's looking up at her saying, "I lost track." It's like cat's always been that way, so it's no big deal to her.
Yeah, I'm sure that the pets are probably hollering, I'm ready for these people to go back to work.
Oh, that's right. Don't you have some place to be? The first week I was here, I was like, I swear that's what the cats were doing. They were looking at me like, why are you still here?
Yeah.
You're supposed to be gone.
But it's going to be interesting when these attractions that are primarily paranormal investigation based, places like Waverly Hills, where there hasn't been any attendance whatsoever. I don't know if you'd expect it to die down because there's less energy there for them to feed off of, or it's going to be absolutely massive because, hey, we can finally come out and play.
Yeah, well, that's true. Or they might get agitated that you come back. It's like, we finally had the place to ourselves. Now you come back with a stick again. Great.
Just how it ticked off. I thought we got rid of these people. Now they're back. It's going to be interesting to see what happens once these investigations start up again.
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, I like going to these locations with the mindset that I am a guest there, and I'd like to find a way to interact with them in a positive manner. I know when I went to Ashmore Estates in Mattoon, Illinois, I went there a couple of times. I went there with my recorder, and I picked out period-style dance music that they would dance to, that they might have parties to. And I would play that. And we had some situations where the music on my phone would rapidly change. It would scroll through my playlist and start picking out its own music because it was a new toy. It's something they hadn't seen before. Wow. That was really fascinating to see.
Absolutely.
I got another question from the chat room. It's from Tabby Cat. And she wants to know, what is your take on psychometry? And she said her reason for asking is because while you were together in Gettysburg, she had no idea that a building had been rebuilt, yet she sensed that the rocks were all wrong.
Mm-hmm. Oh, that's a very real thing. Everything, if you look at quantum physics, everything vibrates at a frequency. Everything, even the rocks. So the fact that a psychic might be able to pick up on that vibration, sure. And I've got some good friends of mine that are, and a lot of people that have psychic ability sometimes have more than one ability. They might be a clairvoyant and a medium. They might be a clairvoyant and a psychometric reader and something else. So yeah, it's not uncommon for somebody to have more than one ability or to pick up energy in different ways.
So since you've
to that effect, it's interesting if you have an object which vibrates on a certain frequency and it comes into contact with something else in your house that operates off of a different frequency and they're not compatible, that could also cause a lot of disjointedness in the house, wouldn't you think?
Oh, sure. Well, yeah, that's why we see a lot of times that the televisions will sometimes go wonky, or the radios might act out, or the lights might act up. It's the energy field of the entity. They may not even be doing it intentionally. They may just their field might be coming into contact with something else, causing a distortion. And
I often wonder. Go ahead.
Go.
Oh, I was just going to say, I often wonder if that's what people bringing home antiques might find, is that it has a completely different vibration. They might think, this antique has an attachment to it, when in fact it's just been in the possession of somebody who had a different vibration than you, and it simply just doesn't quite work in your house.
Oh, they might be able. Yeah, they might have psychometric ability and not even know it. And this is the first time they've come into contact with something with a strong energy field. And they're like, oh, this is haunted or whatever it is. In actuality, they're just picking up on that energy for the first time because they can. So that's what I find out with a lot of people that are mediums, is that they don't know they're a medium until the ghost tells them they are.
Congratulations, here's your certificate.
So
yeah,
since being quarantined, have you noticed any activity in your house?
I've had some come and go. I tend to keep a fairly, well, quote unquote, clean house. I have my boundaries set up, and I have entities that I work with me to make sure that the stuff stays out. But on occasion, when emotions get high, and over the last couple of weeks, we've seen it globally get high. Sometimes you attract attention. And you might need some help clearing it out, or you might have to set your boundaries again and tell it to get out. But yeah, you're in a very intense, emotional, passionate energy right now, whether it's with the quarantine or the social government upheaval, or worries about the super volcano blowing up, or the murder hornets, or you pick your poison. If you have entities out there that are going to feed off of anxiety, this is a prime hunting environment for them. So if you're not paying attention to the energy going on around you, you could really fall victim to that.
Mm-hmm. And I'm sure that there's some pretty warped, well, there's warped people out there too, but warped spirits that are just going to go, ooh, that tastes good.
Yeah, absolutely.
I guess they're going to go to freaked out people. Yeah.
Okay, I got
Sometimes they can be discarnate. Sometimes they can just be energy looking for a home. But yeah.
Got another question from the chat room from Sherry. She wants to know what you think about ascension into a higher spiritual role and vibration, and its effect on gifts one exhibits.
Oh, it can definitely change who you have working with you. I've seen before with mediums that are working in a very altruistic manner, and their gifts get better, but more refined. But then there's other mediums that slip and fall for monetary gain or attention, or whatever it is, and their guidance seems to slip. And their readings aren't as good as they used to be. They're not as sharp as they used to be, or they're not positive as they used to be. So definitely, following your and adhering to your spiritual practice, especially if they're positive, are going to improve your gifts and your abilities, and your intuition as well, and where that might lead you.
Okay.
I don't know if I answered everything, did I?
No, you're good. I think that was it. So, where's the place that you've actually got the most activity at?
Oh, definitely Gettysburg. Anybody that says that Gettysburg is not the most haunted place on earth hasn't been there yet. And that was the funny thing, is that when I started teaching my parapsychology classes, I came across a friend of the show, Craig Rubb. Came across his infrared, his famous shot from Warren Monument, and it was copyrighted with his name on it, and I wasn't going to use it without permission, so I contacted him. And that's when he was saying, hey, you know what, you should, you come out here, look me up. And so when I got the opportunity, my dad retired, he had extra frequent flyer points, and my brother was going to Jamaica, and I'm like, I'm going to Gettysburg. And they're like, what?
Huh.
Like, I'm definitely going to Gettysburg. If I get the chance, I'm going. So, but yeah, even when you start driving into the edge of town, you just feel the energy like I've never felt anywhere before.
You can tell. Yeah.
You can definitely tell. And I've had so many interesting experiences there. Not always positive, but definitely life-changing experiences there. And one of my favorites that I had was I was working on a remote viewing missing persons case when I went out to do some volunteering, and I didn't tell anybody I was going. So I was still talking with the medium on Facebook. And I'm at the historic location, and he's like, can I call you? I said, sure, go ahead. And so he called me. He says, he was an anesthesiologist that worked in a hospital in Phoenix. But he was also a very good medium and came from a long line of Quilandero, which is Hispanic holy people. And he's just like, I am here in the hospital in my office, and I feel like I'm talking to you in a hospital. And like, please continue. I didn't want to be on. And so he literally walked me step by step through the house. He says, you walk through the living room, you turn to the left, and there's a display case right there. And he said, there are human remains in that display case that need to be dealt with immediately. And I was shocked. Because several of the people that used to do metal detecting parties back in the 90s, when the property used to be private, had returned artifacts to us through the mail saying, we didn't realize at the time when we did all this that this, these things don't belong to us. They belong to the museum. They should be given back to you. And so they were put in the display case. And I noticed that there were some bone fragments in there. And considering the place used to be a field hospital where they did amputations and everything there. And it's like, how do we know that those bones aren't human? And oh, no, the director was absolutely positive. These were from the butcher's house out back, and they're human, or they're not human, they're animal. And the medium's like, absolutely not. Those are human. They need to be buried.
Huh.
And it's like, there's no way he could have possibly known that. And he says, oh, and then when you hang a left from there, there's a staircase that goes up the stairs. I said, yeah. There's a lady up there in the master bedroom that's not very happy about her curtains. And it was so hilarious because the volunteer coordinator was there with me in the room. And I laughed, and she's like, what's so funny? And I turned to her and I said, remember the curtains that kept getting ripped down? She goes, yep. He says, he's telling you. I said, I told you that. I said, the lady of the house doesn't like those curtains up there, and you just laughed at me. He's telling me the same thing.
Had he ever been to Gettysburg?
He'd never been. He was from the Dominican Republic.
Oh, huh.
Oh, wow.
And yeah, he got his visa, and he was practicing medicine in Phoenix. So even when he was talking to me about, he says, I'm seeing guns on the property, big guns. And they have big wheels on the side. Do they have guns out there like that? Because the guns that we have in the Dominican Republic have these little carts with wheels on them. I'm like, oh, you mean like on the wooden sailing ship? He goes, oh, yeah, that's where we have cannons. But this guy is telling me this is how they move the guns around. And I'm like, yeah. And he said, there are 3 guns on the property, 2 that belong, and then 1 that does not belong. And we had just found the day before, when we were clearing brush, 2 artillery divots, or depressions in the ground where they had cut out sections of the land to mount the cannons during battle. We just found those the day before.
Huh. Wow.
And I turned to the voluntary coordinator. I said, I don't understand the 3rd that doesn't belong. And she laughed, and she said, the garage up there next to where we cleared the brush? I said, yeah. That's where the reenactment cannon is. It's a replica. I had no idea that was even there.
Wow.
So, and that's one of those things as a parapsychologist you kind of weed through and think about, because he wasn't reading my mind because I didn't have that information.
Sure.
And so, yeah, he's obviously picking it up from somewhere else. You know, and the bone thing, I mean, obviously he was the one telling me they were human. I didn't know.
So how did he know that you was in Gettysburg?
He didn't.
Well, how did he get a hold of you to call you? I mean,
he called me on Facebook phone.
Oh.
It's called cell phone.
Wow.
It's interesting you're bringing up battlefields, and today is D-Day. And
yes, it is.
So one would think that Normandy also would be a place that is packed, although I think it's a national monument, and I'm not sure how much visiting you can do there.
Oh, you probably could visit it as a citizen doing paranormal investigations. I'd be wondering if they would consider that in good taste. I don't know.
Probably not. Yeah.
No, but yeah. My grandfather landed on the beach a couple of days after D-Day. He remembered seeing the guns and the helmets on the beach.
Wow.
When he came off the boat. And so that was, I saw that the other day on Facebook. I'm like, yeah, that's right, it is.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Fascinating.
Yeah. No, I'm sure there's probably quite a bit of paranormal activity over there if one were to look.
One would think there would have to be.
The difficulty I would find, though, being an investigator or a medium over there, is that Europe is so old.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, what layer of history are you pulling up when you're feeling that energy there? And we had that problem in Gettysburg, too, when I was wandering around and with other people, that I was getting energy or actually feedback from different periods of time. Not just the Civil War. I mean, we go to Gettysburg thinking Civil War, you know.
Right.
Sure.
But there was somebody there that was probably from around the 1900s, because they were listing family names within Gettysburg, but it didn't sound like they were attached to the battle in any way.
That's very true. It makes you kind of wonder what a sensitive archaeologist would be going through at any one time.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You're handling objects that sometimes could be thousands of years old. and exactly what you would pick up in that.
Oh yeah, I had a friend of mine contact me and said, "Oh my gosh, I need you to help me." As what's going on is we're dealing with Holocaust artifacts. What? I need help. I'm touching these things, and she's a medium anyway. And I said, "You need a grounding stone. You need to go outside, either get a pouch of dirt out there or get a stone from out there and hold that at the same time as you're going through the archive, because you're going to be picking up on a lot of stuff by touching those things." And she's like, "Oh my gosh, I can't believe I forgot about that." Yeah, you're right.
Huh.
So
yeah. When are you going back to Gettysburg?
2 weeks.
In 2 weeks, you lucky.
Well, I don't know how lucky I am. We'll see how it is out there. Things are strange right now.
Well, last time I talked to Craig, he said that he had taken private tours out on the battlefield, and he said they were just going crazy getting stuff because nobody had been out there for a long time, and it's like the people out there was anxious to actually interact and talk.
Oh, wow.
So as far as everything else being opened up, I have no idea how much is actually opened up there yet.
Yeah, I'm disappointed. A couple of my friends are not going to be in town. I do have a friend of mine that's out at the seminary, hoping to get a walk around there, have him show me around. But yeah, I haven't really talked to him about my parapsychology part. We'll see how he feels about that, because he's definitely going to be a pastor.
Oh.
But of course, we'll touch base with Mr. Craig while we're out there.
Yeah, Tabby Cat probably be around.
Quiet 4th of July. It's going to be really weird when you think about it.
Oh yeah.
I mean, there's no reenactment this year.
No.
They canceled that. They weren't going to have it anyway. They were going to have that political some sort of political conference rah-rah thing out there. I'm having a hard time remembering who that was going to be, but that got canceled. So it's probably going to be the quietest 4th of July in years.
Well, if the park is still not loaded with a lot of tourists, that'd be a good time to go out on the battlefield.
I think it would.
Yeah. So.
Yeah.
And I'm sure Tabby
I might
Cat.
actually get a chance.
I'm sure Tabby Cat will be there too.
Oh, absolutely. I'll be hitting her up when I get up there too. There's a lot of people I haven't seen in a while. And then, of course, my friend out at the seminary, I didn't even know he was going.
Huh.
I was like,
wow.
Wait a minute. Weren't you getting your degree in drama when I saw you last? I was like, this is kind of a big change for you.
Well, I won't get a go.
We have one question, and that is, what's the earliest entity you've been able to pick up era-wise? You can go back to the Confederacy, but have you been able to go back further than that?
Oh, that's a little tough. You get that mindset when you go into a location, and that historic precedence of that location kind of is stuck in your head. It's kind of hard. And I've had that trouble with mediums too when they walk into a location. We did Fairfield. All we could get one medium to pick up on was Civil War. And I tried to explain to her that, well, you realize this building was built in, don't tell me.
Huh.
And I'm like, well, then your mind is going to be stuck in exactly what you want to perceive.
Right.
If I don't tell you.
Huh.
You might see other things that will click with an earlier time era, but you're stuck here. So sometimes it is good for the medium to have at least a little information.
Right. Wow. So you're going to go to Gettysburg. Is there anything else that you've got that's going to be coming up?
I'm hoping to connect with Dr. Larson out at University of North Carolina, Wilmington. He's hoping to do a summer session haunting class out there, and hopefully that will get off the ground, and I'm supposed to help him with that. So it'll be kind of fun to do university level,
right?
Continuing education.
Well, you got the Battleship, North Carolina. Before I got into actual ghost hunting or anything like that, when I was living there, I'd go out on it during the day sometimes if I didn't have anything to do and just walk around. There wouldn't be that many tourists out there. And it's really weird. You can climb up into where the big guns fired from. You can go down into the ship where the chow hall was, and just, I mean, it's real interesting to walk through the whole thing. But it's eerie if there's nobody else around and you're walking down through the bowels of the ship.
Oh, yeah, I've done that before. I'm not that particular ship, but I remember I got a room at the Queen Mary, and it was literally the night before Christmas. It was like there was very few people there, and so I had the run of the whole place all night long, and so that was kind of eerie to go through that and walk around.
And there's Fort Fisher. That was an interesting battle in Carolina Beach. So there's a lot of areas around that you can go to from the Civil War history and earlier, because it was also they fought the British too there. So,
yes.
There's a lot
that's one thing I have to remind people when we go out that way is, like, this is the oldest part of the country. You have, French Indian War, you have Red War, you have Indian incursions, well, if you want to call them incursions. They were there first. You have the War of 1812, and then you have the Civil War.
Oh, yeah.
And then, of course, out of Gettysburg, too, most people forget that they did World War II maneuvers.
Yes.
Out on the battlefield there. So, Gettysburg's been there for quite a while.
Wow. Jeff, you still with us, or?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, okay.
I'm just listening.
I didn't know if you was. You got anything you wanted to add, Jeff? You haven't talked very much.
I was looking. I was trying to look up something to get the quote right, and now I'm trying to remember what it says. The way things are going through the country the past few months, the beginning of 2020, it's almost like America's built on hundreds of thousands of Indian burial grounds.
Yeah. Oh, wait. Yeah, I love that one. Yeah, funny how that works.
Well, there's even close to where I live here in Ohio. There's different places where Indian burial grounds are.
Okay, I think you're missing the point.
Well, I know what you're saying. I'm just saying that
Yeah.
there's Indians everywhere, and you can come across their stuff at any time.
Yeah, and I have done that. I've been down by the hunting trails down along the Des Moines River, which was used by the French fur trappers really early on. And I picked up language that is not.
Safe for work?
It's definitely Native. It's definitely Native American of some kind. So
wow.
It's not very loud, but it's there.
Yeah, so July is volcano month, right?
Volcano month.
It's the volcano.
There
volcano
goes
season?
Yellowstone. Well, we've got aliens too, obviously.
Yeah, have you heard any uptick in UFOs?
Yeah, I heard it was like who's got, somebody was joking, who's got alien invasion down for January? I'm like, dang, I had
I think Barbara had that game out, didn't you?
Yeah, there's a catastrophe bingo card out there somewhere. So pretty much can go through anything.
heavens.
Well, talking about UFOs, next week we have Thomas Workman on. So we'll find out all about UFOs with him, because he's the Ohio director of MUFON.
Well, I
you'll have
need to
ask
talk
him
him into
before
making that
question.
dream glove.
What'd you say, Darcie?
You'll have to ask him the quarantine question, too, if he's noticed an uptick of reports from people that are in quarantine that haven't noticed things before, but all of a sudden are.
I think we spoke about that last time it was on.
Well, a little, but I read somewhere where, matter of fact, I think it was on the article that Darcie sent, that there has been an uptick in UFOs also. So,
Oh, yeah. I think that was in there, yeah.
yeah. So we'll have to find that out next week, and
Oh, yeah.
so our time is just about gone. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to let you tell everybody how they can follow you and contact you and all the good stuff that you do. And then I want you to stay on till we're off, and then we'll thank you.
Okay. Well, you can find me at Paranormal Researcher Darcie McGrath, or you can look me up under Quantum Psi PSI group on Google, and that'll take you there too. That's the group page that I work with. And again, if you have any experiences that you've had during the quarantine, I would love to hear about them. If you want to send them to me, maybe we can hook you up with a survey and get some more information from you. I'd really appreciate it.
All right. With that, Barbara, you got any last remarks before we go?
No, just everybody please stay safe. We're getting out of quarantine, but there's other stuff going on, and
Yes.
continue to wash your hands.
Yes. So,
Please.
Jeff, you got any last things?
I need work.
I need work. Are you laid off, or?
I've been laid off since March.
Well, I mean,
That's the thing when you work at a tourist attraction. It's like they consider things like museums not essential.
well, I mean, when they open back up, are you supposed to still have a job?
I sure hope so.
Oh.
I haven't heard otherwise. So, I mean, they've been in touch with us saying, we're hoping any day now.
I definitely
Thanks,
miss
Ed.
the reenactors are just like chomping at the bits, like, yeah, we want to do something.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
I mean, I wish I had enough money just to spend time out in Gettysburg. That would be awesome. Because, of course, Craig would show me everything. So, yay.
Oh yeah.
And we want to make his book into a movie.
Absolutely, yeah.
Wow. So, I guess we're pretty much ready to jump off. I mean, I got a little over a minute, but we're probably just going to go ahead. Do you think it's too early, Barbara?
Well, we got a few minutes,
Go
so please, everybody, read the newspaper. There's a lot going on out there in the world, but everybody can check it out. And to our friends in New Orleans that are about to get hit by a very big tropical storm, please batten down the hatches, because it's started hurricane season.
I'm sure a lot of places have already boarded up. How easy is that?
Yeah, add us to the murder hornets. was that on the
Is it murder
was that on
hornets?
the card there,
Do very
Barb?
much. Yeah,
Hurricanes
murder
are on the bingo card, yeah.
Oh, okay, they are on the card. Okay.
Yeah, murder hornets
Yeah, they told
too.
me.
Yeah.
We might have some real hectic weather this year because of all this also. They might just want to tear everything up. So,
Well, of course, Reuters has reported that a lot of the top doctors are now saying that the CCP virus has diminished in its danger levels. People are coming in with much milder symptoms, and it's curable. We know it's curable, and even one of the fake studies claiming that hydroxyl is fatal or doesn't work has been retracted because they were like, yeah.
all right, it's time for us to go. We will see you next week at the same time. So this is Henry Foister.
Jeffrey Gould.
And Barbara Duncan.
So good night,
Darcie
everybody.
McGrath.
You've been listening to the Paranormal View on the ParaX Radio Network. Join us again next week at the same time for more of the Paranormal View.